Greetings comic lovers, and welcome back to Casually Comics, where we examine comics from a variety of eras, talk about news, and just general happenings and moments. Basically whatever we feel like on a whim, because we keep it casual. I'm Sasha, and today we're going to be looking at a piece of history regarding Spider-Man's black costume, aka the alien costume, eventually aka the symbiote / Venom costume. A fact that many people have forgotten has been lost to the annals of time, and that is that when this costume first debuted, fans hated it. Not everyone, but a decent portion. That's hard to believe for a lot of people because these days this costume is one of Spidey's iconic looks and for many a favorite. And also Spider-Man has had a lot of costumes. However, at the time this was not the case. And that is one of the factors that played into why the suit was initially so poorly received. We're also going to take a look at where the idea for this black suit came from and how the fan backlash led to the creation of Venom. Lots to talk about, and I'm excited. If you're here for Spidey no matter what the costume, hit that like button. So the now famous panel of Spider-Man in his black suit is a mainstay at this point. The panel of Spidey posing uncomfortably so we can see the suit in all angles, from the front at least. He's talking about how much he likes his new look. This panel comes from near the end of the beloved massive crossover event known as Secret Wars from 1985, issue number 8 to be specific, though big things started happening with it in issue 12. However, this is not where the costume first debuted. In fact, Secret Wars is its first chronological appearance, meaning the place in the story chronologically, canonically when he first got it, but it was already in comics before that point. It was a little convoluted, especially for readers now. The suit made its first appearance in comics in The Amazing Spider-Man number 252, which was released in 1984. So that means it debuted a year before the explanation for how he got the suit did in Secret Wars, which was being released in 1985. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. So for fans who were following The Amazing Spider-Man, he just went from red and blue to black with no explanation. Just all of a sudden, new costume. Though there had been rumblings, whispers, rumors that some change was coming and that it was going to be the costume. This can be evidenced by what's written on the cover. The rumors are true. Introducing the new Spider-Man. Bold. Too bold. Here's the thing. Fans tend to be skeptical of change for many reasons. Now, in retrospect, this is no demon divorce or Doc Ock taking over Peter's body or Peter getting his powers from some spider god. It seems pretty minor when you compare all of these new modern retcons to it. However, at the time, this was something. And the costume did alter some of Peter's abilities, producing webbing for him and changing his clothes, just to name a few small things. For some, it was just too much and too gimmicky, and they didn't like the look and just no thank you. Also, the fact that they recreated the first Spider-Man cover with this costume for some was read as aggressive, kind of a like this or else. Sadly, these complaints have been largely lost to time. You know I want to do a dramatic reading for you, but Marvel tends not to publish the very vehement letters on the back of their comic. They'll publish some dissent, but it's usually very politely phrased, like, "Dear Marvel, I was slightly peeved by this." No, I want the, "if you don't take this suit off, I'm never reading Spider-Man again." And then they throw it dramatically on the floor. It must be noted that this was also Spider-Man's first ever costume change since his inception in 1962. Sure, some small things have been tweaked here and there, but on the whole, it was the same concept. So this was a pretty big visual shift. So it's easy to see why people had been attached, especially as the change was pitched as permanent. And in this era, retcons weren't being handed out like they are today, like pamphlets on street corners. So there was a genuine fear that this could be a permanent change. Nowadays, fans are aware that pretty much nothing is permanent, everything is transient, and that creates its own set of problems. However, unlike the time of this recording, where the creed seems to be that if fans don't like something, it's very much tough luck buttercup, suck it up, the writers were very concerned. At this time, Marvel and the writers were concerned that fans weren't enjoying this twist or new look, especially as in the 80s, Marvel wasn't doing too great, so they needed to maintain readership, and that involved keeping fans happy, especially for Spider-Man, who is very much a flagship, helping keep them afloat, as arguably he was their most popular character. Just a little bit in front of the Fantastic Four. People don't give the first family enough credit. As Spider-Man was a guaranteed hit that needed to continue, anything that jeopardized him needed to be examined. So now the writers began to brainstorm a reason for why Peter wouldn't want the costume and why he would have to take it off. Something they had time to do because of the gap in between the Amazing Spider-Man issue and the eventual release of Secret Wars, even though a lot of that was already plotted, but they still had time to plant the seed seeds for him getting it off. They had to do this because they'd made such a big deal about the costume through Peter, so it could no longer be something where he was just like, well, that was fun, time to go back to the red and blue. Hence the concept of the alien costume was conceived. The costume would prove to be an alien force, ultimately sentient and malevolent, something that was altering Peter's personality and trying to control him, and hence something he needed to get off. This would all lead to the costume being revealed as Venom, an alien parasite or symbiote, who would form his most famous bond in The Amazing Spider-Man number 29, with a full appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 300 with Eddie Brock. This whole arc and event would come to be known as the Alien Costume Saga, a now famed arc. And Venom is now a staple character, and the symbiotes are now key players in the Marvel Universe. There was just one problem. In all of the time that this took, fans had come to love the black costume on Peter. Yes. For reference, because of how long comics take and the gap in between them, by the time the Alien Costume Saga ended, Peter had been in the black costume for roughly 4 years. Plenty of time for people to get used to and start loving this costume, so it's no surprise that people did. In fact, for some people coming into Spider-Man, this may have been the only costume they'd known up to that point. So now writers were scrambling to try and find a way for Peter to keep his costume, and it couldn't be the same one because that had been established as an alien symbiote, so they needed an actual black costume for him to wear. The fix they came up with for this was a little less graceful and epic. It involved the Black Cat, one of Peter's other love interests, very much enjoying how he looked in the black costume, and hence fashioning for him a cloth version that he wore because he knew that she liked it. Kinky. Tale as old as time. Ultimately, the black costume would come off when artist Todd McFarlane, who most will know of Spawn fame, put his foot down and said he hated drawing the black costume and he wasn't going to. I wish I could throw tantrums like that at work. I mean, I could. I'd just get fired. I'm not doing it. So once again, an explanation had to be derived. This time it came from Mary Jane Watson, Peter's great love. She had been a prominent part of the Alien Costume Saga and decided to tell Peter that she did not like the black costume because it reminded her of all the trauma they had gone through because of Venom. Also her kidnapping, you know. Because of all this, he ultimately took it off. He would much later don it again in the very maligned James Straczynski's Back in Black. Straczynski has a lot of controversial Spider-Man runs. It's not all demon divorces. Back in Black. Yet the legacy of not only Venom, but Spidey getting costume redesigns lives on. People are open to it now. Indeed, swapping suits is an achievement in games and the like. This tale also shows us that listening to fan backlash is not always terrible, and can in fact, if done correctly, yield some really epic results. However, on the flip side, it also shows that writers can sometimes react too quickly, and that fans can get used to something if you give them time. In short, there's a happy medium in between any fan who didn't like this is a troll, and oh my god, 5 people didn't like it, cancel everything. Just need to find a nice balance in your fan service. Fan service, perfectly balanced, as all things should be. So where did this black costume idea even come from in the first place? Well, it actually came from a fan named Randy Schuler, who was 22 at the time. He submitted his idea for a new costume for a contest that Marvel was running at the time to solicit new ideas. Yeah, mileage very much varies about the morality and ethics of such contests nowadays. His idea was that Spidey needed a cool stealth suit like some of the other heroes had, like the Fantastic Four and the Wasp. So he came up with an idea that he would get a new costume that would tweak his abilities. And Marvel liked it. Marvel editor Jim Shooter actually wrote him a letter saying that he wanted to buy the concept, a letter that he still has. And he bought the concept off of him for $220. Along with the money, he was offered the opportunity to write the story, something that he absolutely jumped at. However, after a couple of letter exchanges and phone calls back and forth, the scripting process didn't really work for him and the whole thing kind of fell apart on that front. And so Marvel ended up going forward with the idea with their own story. Randy's not bitter about it, he just wishes he'd been acknowledged. Which he came out to talk about in 2007, spurred on by Spider-Man 3, which as many will remember featured a now infamous rendition of the black costume. And here I finally have quotes to read. My favorite thing. I thought it would be cool if Spidey needed to upgrade his powers and his look, so I came up with this idea, that Reed Richards had made a new costume for Spidey, using the same unstable molecules that the FF costumes are made of. The unstable molecules would flow into Peter's pores and allow him to cling to walls better. I think my original idea was to increase his sticking power by 25% or something like that. Since Marvel paid me for the story, I have no real gripe, but I do feel bad that they didn't give me any kind of acknowledgement in the comics. You know, something like costume concept by Randy Schuler, or thanks to Randy Schuler for inspiration, or Randy Schuler, you Spidey fanboy stud, you rock. But no, I got nothing. That's my one disappointment in this whole story. Can I just say that I too would like to be credited as a fanboy stud for anything? Wow, look at Sasha. She read the heck out of that comic. What a fanboy stud. Fanboy stud. One on a shirt. Now, at the time of this recording, Randy Schueller's idea is going to be adapted into a comic for the first time for Marvel's 80th celebration. However, you will find that many people write about it or discuss it. They use the clickbait headline of Randy Schueller's first Venom story or the first ever Venom story published for the first time. However, Schueller didn't actually come up with Venom, and in fact, he doesn't really like that character at all. I have more receipts. And then, when Venom was created, I was disturbed. I was never a fan of the costume turned villain idea. Give me the classic Ditko villains any day. Venom just never really seemed to work for me. But I digress. It'll be cool to see this story in print, the original idea that he had. And hopefully somewhere on the page they credit him as a fanboy stud. So that was the tale of Spidey's black costume. One that was briefly hated and now is almost universally beloved. Has there ever been an aesthetic character change that you initially hated but then came to love? Did you know about the initial backlash? And how do you feel about how it was handled? Share all of your thoughts down below, and thanks so much for watching, and please go on and do all of the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so that you never miss a vid. I'm Sasha, and we'll see you again soon here on Casually Comics. Bye bye.